Welcome, everybody, to the Follow D Money podcast. We are here at La Meridian downtown, and I have the final guest of the year. And I must say, we are very happy to have her. She is a representative of our state Senate, and we have Andrea Hunley here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me in.
Thank you for coming. And not sure if you're a fan of the podcast or not, but usually what I do when I have a guest on, I ask them to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, because everyone doesn't know who you are. We ask people who we admire and who are doing things in our city that are really cool. But for the people who don't know who you are, please tell them who you are and where you come from.
Well, first, of course, I'm a fan of the pod. Of course, absolutely. And I have listened to many episodes. I can't even pick out a favorite. But that's one of my favorite things is off the top, just hearing people share how they identify themselves.
Yep.
And so I definitely see myself as a teacher who turned into an administrator.
Yep.
I was a school principal for 11 years in Indianapolis Public Schools. And now I made the jump into politics, so became a state senator in 2022. But when I, see an image of myself on TV or speaking at the microphone, sometimes I have to stop and pinch myself, because if I told 4-year-old me, 7-year-old me that this is what I would be doing, I would just think, no way.
Yeah.
I started off in foster care and was adopted at an early age. And my parents have always told me, you can be anything you want to be, go for your big dreams and all of that. But, but when you grow up, I was in Fort Wayne and in some tough neighborhoods. And when you grow up like that, I think it's hard to just envision what could absolutely be possible.
Yeah.
And so even though my parents have always said dream big, it's hard to see what those dreams could be.
Yeah.
And of course, my big dream was becoming a teacher, which I did.
Yep.
But I just never thought that this path would be possible.
The first question I would ask you is, going from teaching into politics, what is that path looking like? Like, how does that come about? How do you go from being a teacher? And to me, it's pretty organic, because you're dealing with the youth and educating them. So could you just talk about your mindset in changing careers?
Yeah, it's interesting, because so much of what teachers do is political, even though I would always say I hate politics, and I still don't like politics, but politics is all up in education.
Yep.
Over half of our state's budget is spent on education.
Yep.
The majority of the bills that get passed out are about education.
Yep.
And so I think there's just, being a teacher, I was always so aware of the state's role in what it is I have to teach, what I can teach, what I can't teach, what I can say, what I can't say.
Right.
What the requirements are to graduate from high school, right? I was a high school teacher. And, and thinking about that and thinking, I think it's important that kids have an English course every year, but is it the state's job to say that every year we need to be learning Shakespeare from,
right.
9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade?
Yep.
I'm just not sure that's the best use. And so just being aware as a teacher how much the state's hands were in what I was doing.
Yep.
And so I thought, if I become an administrator, then I'll be able to work on policy. And I was able to some extent, but even as an administrator, I got to see even more about how the state controls what money gets sent to schools, what schools do have money and which ones don't, right? All those inequities. And so I think that the transition was kind of natural, because I was already so engaged in the policy, but I didn't think I could ever run and win, right? Because to run for office, I thought that you needed to know something about the law.
Yeah.
I'd never been to law school. I thought that you needed to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which is sort of true.
Yeah.
Or you need to find people that have money. And I also thought that you had to have already been in some type of a position, right? Whether that's a school board member or a city councilor, or that you had to do something else first. And so it was kind of wild to just take that leap of faith and run for state senate.
Yep.
But the community really, encouraged me to do it.
And how much of you, being from Indiana, growing up, how you did influenced how you lead in the Senate? How much of you came from your upbringing?
I think of the 100% of it, has from the fact that my parents, always told me, right, you can do anything, you can be anything. So like when I said I was going to run, I can't tell you how many people told me it's not your turn, or you're not going to be able to raise enough money, or the district that you want to represent isn't an all-black district, so you're not going to be able to win. I mean, people, even other Democrats were telling me all of these things, but I kept hearing my parents in the background going, you can be whatever you want to be. And so that was really important. And then also, my husband will tell you this, that I've just never heard the word no.
Right.
My parents terribly spoiled me and my siblings. And so
some will say that's a brat.
Yes,
right?
It's true. It's true. I mean, like, we didn't have much, but they worked hard to make sure that they could say yes more often than no. And so I think that is the thing that I definitely take with me into the Senate is that when I'm like, oh, I have an idea for this bill, and I hear no, I'm like, well, you just mean not yet. You just mean not this time. You just mean, oh, we just need to tweak it a little bit. Right. And so I think that definitely helps me and keep pushing.
Mm-hmm. When you are going through legislation, how much do you consider where you come from when you do legislation, and how do you rank what you want to attack and what you want to affect?
It's so hard to narrow things down.
Because we don't understand as people how many things, like, we have things that are important to us, but everything is on your plate. So you have to address everything, and you have to prioritize what you feel is most important for your constituents, right?
Yes.
So how do you do that?
It is such a challenge. And depending on the year, that depends on what my limits are for how many bills or ideas I can file. So, for example, in a longer session, a session when we're going to work on the budget, it's just like 4 months long, we can file 15 bills. But then in a short session, so we're coming up on a short session, which is only 3 months long, we get 7 bills to file. And for some members, it's only 5 bills. And so that's really hard. My first session, I had about 23 bill ideas, had to narrow it down to 15, and worked so hard on all of them. And guess how many passed into law? My 15 great ideas.
Of 15? 4.
0. Zero. So it's also very, very hard to get bills heard, to get bills passed, to do all those things. My second year, I refiled some of the same legislation, and the one big one that got passed was a DNA data privacy bill. And I worked with a member of the House who was on the other side of the aisle from me, and we collaborated, but we'd been working on that for 2 years together. And we were able to get that passed. But like that bill, there weren't a lot of my constituents knocking on my door saying like, oh, those 23andMe tests, we want to make sure that we maintain all of our data, in perpetuity that becomes ours and other people can't use it. But we knew that like this was a big issue. And that, I mean, if you think about Henrietta Lacks, right, way back, and how our people's DNA has been used for different purposes, right, that was important to me for the purposes of protecting our people. Right. And so I think I'm always thinking about, okay, how is this going to help my community, whether that's Indianapolis or whether that's our greater community, the community of educators. But it's tough to narrow things down.
I bet. And one thing that's wild is you being a Black woman in Indiana in the Senate is kind of a big deal.
Tell me about it.
It's a big deal. And you were elected in 22. What about the political landscape of Indiana has changed in that time to you?
Well, I definitely think that people...
because you being there is a change.
It is a change. It is a change. People are bolder now to say things that they used to only say in quiet. And I think that, for example, my whole first session, I never wore my hair in braids. I love wearing my hair in braids, but I didn't because I'm like, I don't know these people. They don't know me. Let me just, come in. And so then my second session, first time I come in with my hair in braids, somebody walk up to me and says, did they let you wear your hair like that when you were principal? I said, of course they did. Of course they did. And it's like they just have no concept for, people who look like us being in these positions. I'm on many committees. One of them is the Utilities Committee, which is one of the most powerful committees because if you think about it, there's a lot of money that comes in. Think about data centers and all the money that's coming in with that, right? That all is connected to utilities.
Yep.
So that committee, I was for a long time the only Black member on that committee. And during the summertime when we meet to really study ideas and information, our committee's meeting and I'm looking down the table and I'm the only woman sitting in there as well.
Wow.
And so just thinking about like all of that added weight and added pressure that is very different for, the guy from Boone County or the guy from Burnville or wherever, right?
Yep.
It's just a very different perspective that I feel a responsibility to bring to the table.
Yep. And I think that in rooms like that, even myself as a man, I couldn't understand or relate to that pressure. Just your voice becomes that much more important for women and people of color, and we have to commend women like you being in rooms like that because you never know, because your voice is important and it might not affect change in that room, but they hear it. They definitely hear it.
And, and I was an English teacher. I am not a scientist. I don't know anything about carbon sequestration or, small modular nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
But I've had to learn it. And so that's also been really interesting, being in the State House is just the wide variety of legislation that we work on.
Yep.
Just this past week, I was meeting with people to talk about prosthetic for amputees, or people who've been born with a limb difference.
Yep.
So to work on legislation to help them get prosthetics that will allow them to live their full life. So if you want to rock climb, you need a certain type of a leg attachment that's going to help you be able to do that. Or if you want to ice skate or run or whatever it is.
Yep.
I've learned a bunch about that. I'm working on bills with firearm safety, working on things with women maternal health. It just spans the whole gamut. I met with a constituent about a foster care issue that they're having. And so it's just a lot of different, things that all come in together.
For lack of better terms, I know these rooms are very political. And when you want to get legislation done, how is it always very political, or can you go across lines to become friends with somebody to get them to help pass a bill? And you might not agree on everything, but how important is it to have these conversations with people that you don't see eye to eye with when you want some kind of legislation done?
The only way to get anything done, especially being in the minority, is to reach across the aisle.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And, it's interesting because over 95% of the bills that we passed last session were bipartisan.
Whoa.
So that, and so I think that the news, we only see that 5% that we're fighting about.
Yep.
But so much of what we're doing is just work for Hoosiers. I'm a sixth generation Hoosier. My kids are the seventh generation, right? And so I think so much of what we're doing is just how do we make life better for our neighbors?
Yep.
What are those simple things that we're doing?
Yep.
And so that's really interesting, but it also can be, frustrating because I might be working with a colleague on one bill, but then there are 7 others we don't agree on.
Right.
And we're going to knock down, drag out on those.
Yep.
But I think that learning not to personalize is really important.
Yep.
And just staying focused on the issues. But, there was one bill, this was maybe my second session, where it was about teachers being allowed to carry firearms in classrooms and then whether or not they needed to receive training to do so.
It's clear that they need training.
My God, yes. But also,
yes.
I'm sitting there in the room and I'm thinking, arming teachers isn't the solution to the problem of, gun deaths in schools. And so, this is just hitting on everything that I care about, education and being a mom and protecting kids and all the things. So I was feeling very emotional.
Yep.
And so I was sitting in there, and after I got done asking the author of the bill a series of very hard-hitting questions that he couldn't answer and stumbled over, I then took a deep breath, and I was like, oh, I'm about to cry real hot tears. I'm just so mad. So I got up from my seat, and I went into our break room, and my tears were just streaming hot down my face. And one of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle who supported this legislation came in to check on me. And he said, I can imagine this is emotional for you. I just wanted to come in and check on you. And I was just crying and yelling, like, this is not the solution. This is not the way. Children are dying. This isn't going to help. And he stood with me the whole time while I crashed out. And then said, okay, are you ready to go back in? And then walked with me back in, even though we completely disagreed. We bonded over the fact that we're both parents of young children. And so I think we just look for those places of common ground. And at the end of the day, like we all, all 50 of us in the Senate, we're all working together.
Yeah. Commonality is very important in this climate today, and finding those reasons to get along. It's tough to get along now, and I'm gonna stay on the state side because we have the redistricting going on, and that's very important. And I don't know if a lot of Hoosiers or people here understand the importance of that. Can you just explain what is happening and what is trying to be accomplished by our local government?
Yes. Okay. I'll try and do the quick version. So there we have 9 folks in Congress that represent Indiana. And right now, 7 of the 9 are Republicans. 2 of the 9 are Democrats. And so President Trump has asked Indiana to redraw their maps so that 9 of 9 become Republicans. And this is so that they can keep control in Congress, right? Because you can get more done if you have your party in the majority. But what's, kind of the problem with this is that Indiana, we redraw our maps every 10 years after there has been a census, and then we redraw them based on population. And we just did this about 4 years ago. And so now they want us to do it again in the middle of a decade, and, really just for political reasons, not because we've had a new influx of people or anything like that. And this has never been done before. And so we know that it's just map rigging for politics. And we've been working really hard to stop this, but it really is going to come down to a House and Senate vote. And so we'll see what happens, because this is all going to happen sometime mid-December. Coming up. And so people who feel as though we shouldn't redraw maps should definitely still be calling in, emailing, writing letters, coming to the State House. There will be opportunities for people to testify. All of that matters. All of that matters.
My question to you is, when you bring up the question, is it fair to change it in the middle to your colleagues? What is their answer?
I haven't heard an answer that makes sense. I'm just going to
I just want to know
if
it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm sure that you guys ask all the time, like, do you think this is fair? Do you think this is right? Is this just not a political move? Like, are you just trying to posture yourself into position of power?
And that's exactly what it is, because right now about 60%, it was like 56% of Hoosiers voted for Trump in the last election. So if you could say 56%, are Republicans, then you'd think that, okay, maybe then our congressional maps would reflect that percentage. Which means that we should actually have 3 seats that would be Democrats. And so there really isn't a reason how you could say this is fairer representation. The other thing is that in the draft maps that they put out, Marion County, Indianapolis, the big city in our state, that we would be split up into 4 different congressional districts, which is crazy. Right now, the majority of us are represented by one person, Congressman Carson, and there's a reason why you want a county to be cohesive and represented by one person. Now, I guess someone could make the argument, well, don't you want 4 people fighting for you out in D.C.?
No, it's too much language. It's too much. I want one person to have all the information.
Absolutely. And if we're splitting up, Marion County that way, that means that like one little sliver of the city is going to actually be, combined with, these other counties that look very different, right? They have much more agriculture land, that are more rural, that, and so then are their needs going to be met, or because Indianapolis is the loudest, will they be forgotten because their person in Congress is going to be focused more on what's happening in the city?
And with the redistricting, that kind of kind of toys with the national aspect of politics with Indiana being involved, right? What is the political landscape nationally? How is that affecting Indiana and our lawmaking here?
What's really frustrating is that it shouldn't be, because, we believe in home rule, meaning like we make the laws here in our state for our state.
Yep.
We don't let, national politics get in the way. And it also is supposed to be that we are the ones here in Indiana who tells DC what we need and what we want, not the other way around.
Right.
DC shouldn't be telling us, right? We should be telling them.
Right.
But because the rhetoric is so high, it's resulting in some really ugly stuff happening. I mean, people are getting threatened at their homes. Like, my God, I mean, I've got kids, my husband, my dog. Like, don't be coming to threaten my house.
Yeah.
Right? People are threatening senators and representatives at their homes. They are, and this is all because our president is, putting out tweets targeting specific legislators.
Yeah.
Like, that should not be happening.
Yeah.
And so we can't let, this type of intimidation spill into our state.
There's a lot of weird things being done by the current president. Unprecedented things. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. But I do want to know, like, on the good side, what are some things about Indiana that could possibly influence national politics or legislation? It's
really kind of exciting to have a time where Indiana is in the political spotlight, because I think a lot of people overlook us.
Yep.
But like, we went for Obama, right? So like, Indiana really is.
Wait a minute. Indiana voted for Obama?
Indeed we did. 2008.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I know. It's pretty amazing.
Right? I did not know that.
Okay, so we are much more purple than people, put us out to be.
Yeah.
We're very independent thinkers, and we don't want others telling us what to do. And so I think that this is a chance for Indiana to show that to the rest of the country, to say, like, this is the Hoosier way.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, at least in the Senate, that we can hold the line on this redistricting vote and say no, which then sends a whole message to DC, say, you don't get to tell us what to do. And it encourages other states to stand up and to say the same thing.
Yep.
And so that is one hope that I have. I mean, we are really independent people here.
Yeah.
And we really, really don't want other people telling us what to do, and not to be unkind. I mean, like, there's a reason why we call it Hoosier hospitality, right? For a reason. Like, we are Midwest nice through and through. Yep. And when you have people, making phone calls, making threats, doing that kind of thing, like, we just don't play that here.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to your upbringing, because I was raised by, my dad was adopted, right? And my dad is like one of the greatest human beings I've ever met, just his perspective on life and things like that. And being adopted and being in such a loving family, what is how do you fight for adoption and lead that charge for people to adopt?
I
meant to ask you that earlier.
Yes. No, I feel so blessed that I get to have this perspective for sure. And you know what's interesting is that because I have a story that has turned out so beautifully, I honestly have felt like it wasn't my place to talk about it or my place to, speak for others who are in foster care or in adoption situations, because I felt like their stories weren't as just as wonderful as mine. Yep. And so I was actually talking to some youth from Foster Success. It's a youth foster organization in the state. And I was talking with them last year, and I said something like that. And one of the young people said to me, we actually need people to share the unicorn stories, because we have to believe that it matters when people foster kids. We have to believe that it matters when people adopt kids. And we have to always hold out hope that could be the story for all of us. And honestly, when she said that, I never heard anyone say it like that to me before, or kind of give me permission to own my beautiful story. Because no matter what, with adoption or with foster care, there is always a bittersweet component. There is always some heartbreak, right? Like, my parents became parents because someone else suffered.
Dang, yeah.
Right?
You're right.
Right, because someone else had an immense loss. And actually, my mom and dad and my birth mom met about 5 years ago and came over to my parents' house, and we had a little cookout. And the moment that my birth mother walked in, my mom gave her a big hug and said, like, you have given me the greatest gift of my life.
Dang.
And it was so beautiful and so powerful. But it's true, like, my mom's greatest love came out of somebody else's greatest pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those different stories, very important in the story of adoption, because my dad's story is he never met his biological parents, never really wanted to. And he was super happy with the parents that he was blessed with, my grandparents. And you have a different story, but people should hear them because they understand the impact of actually adopting. I've always wanted to adopt, but I was never in a position to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's like I feel bad that I never was able to do that, return that favor. Mm-hmm. But like hearing people on the podcast who have been adopted, I've had Patrick Armstrong on, who's adopted, and Lillian Barkis, who is also adopted, and just hearing those stories is really nice kind of advertisement for what is possible.
And you can always be a foster parent. Listen, anytime. Yeah. And I think, too, it's interesting for me because I was young when I was in foster care, so I don't even know who my foster parents were. I can't imagine them in my mind. Yeah. But, they are the ones who gave me my first early start, right? And any of us who've been blessed to be parents, like, how critically important those first months, that first year of life is for your kid to feel attached and feel safe and all of that. Like, somebody gave that to me that I don't even know who they are. And that, I think, is really magical. But my brother, on the other hand, we adopted him when he was 4. And so, like, he knows his whole foster family. He was with the same family for 4 years, and they became part of our family, right? Okay, cool. Aunt Teresa and Uncle Joe, right? Like, we, just sort of embraced them into our family once we adopted him. And so I think that there's just a lot of, a lot of different versions of family. Yep. And I think that that's what I've learned the most from all of this.
What would you say to someone, let's say an adoptee right now, trying to find themselves on a career path, not even a political career path, but just trying to say, like, if they feel distracted or they feel down on themselves, what would you say to them about going ahead and doing what they want to do?
There's a really famous adoptee, Bill Gates. Yeah. And was it him or is it, who's the other? No, it's, I thought it was Bill Gates' book. No, it's the guy from Microsoft, from Apple,
you're talking about
died. Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yes, Steve Jobs. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs always said that as an adoptee, he had kind of this God complex. Like, God, put me here to do this, or God chose me to do this thing, right? And so I think that, like, for adoptees who are struggling to either, like, find their power or step into their full identity, like, especially if you are a person of faith, to really think about the fact that, like, your life is a series of miracles. Yep. It is a series of miracles that you are at the point where you're at today, and to own that. I mean, to really own that. And I think there's something very special about that, and about being chosen, right? That, like, you were chosen, from the very beginning. I do think that it is a unique challenge for, like you mentioned, our friend Patrick Armstrong, for folks who are in transracial adoptions. Yep. My biological parents, my mom was white, my dad was Black, and that's the same thing for my adoptive family as well. And so I do feel blessed that I was able to grow up with, a mix of cultures. But I think that it can also be hard for people who kind of don't feel like they fit the mold, or whether that's fitting the mold of, whatever that may be. And, I think sometimes for me, like, I will say to people, like, we cannot police Blackness. Like, nobody gets to tell me what it means to be Black. Right. Like, I'm not telling anybody else. But, like, I think that there is something, though, in Indy where people think of Black folks, like, as a monolith. They think of Black folks as only one thing. Yep. But, like, from being in LA, or, like, if you're in Atlanta or DC or even Chicago, like, I think folks are more accepting of the fact that like Black folks, like we come in all different shapes, flavors, sizes, right?
All over the place.
All over the place. Like you've got your friend that's like the granola vegan one. Like you've got the bougie friend. You have the artist. You have, the athlete. You've got the activist that like thinks they're a Black Panther. You got the preacher, right? Like you've got all of these things that like every single one of them gets to be on the spectrum of
and
what it needs to be Black.
Yeah,
yes.
all that is Black.
Yes. In any given day, I'm all of those things. But but I just think that like we have to also lean in and celebrate that as a Black community.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I do, like going into celebrating that, I want to know, in your time in the Senate, what has been your biggest accomplishment to you?
Well, if we talk about not simply passing bills, I've been very excited about legislation that I've been able to pass or author. And I feel like my little fingerprints are, on a bunch of different pieces of legislation, whether that's like adding an amendment here or there. I am proud of those things. But I really hope that, that when I leave the Senate, people will say like, wow, she showed us a different way of doing things. Yep. I'm blessed to be in a leadership position in the Senate Democrats. And I really work hard to like help us see each other as whole humans and like hold space for things that like probably seem corny, but like are important, like where like we actually like pause and tell each other that like what we appreciate, or we, work together to like draft our messaging, like where we're working collaboratively. And so I just have tried to make it a more collaborative, collegial space, because for most of us, this is our part-time job.
Right.
And so we're rushing in and we're rushing there and we're doing all those things, and you can get caught up in just the like day-to-day monotony of doing it. And so I just work hard to like slow us down, remind us why we do the work, why it's important, and that we have the opportunity to create generational impact. And so I hope that. And what I'm really proud of is like my ability in just a couple of years to be in a position of leadership where I can say, let's center on why the work matters.
Okay. So that's what you're proud of.
I am proud.
You're proud of that. And that is your current accomplishment. What do you want to be your legacy? Or better question, what is your political goal?
Yes. My big political goal. Well,
I mean, you want to be president, right?
I mean,
like that's the thing. But
in high school, you know, you get those little awards. Most likely to. I was most likely to become the first woman president.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
But I thought for sure that would have happened. By the time I graduated from college.
You would think.
Yeah. Here we are, 20 years later.
You would think.
No, I actually have no desire to work in DC or in DC politics. Not at all.
Okay.
I really see myself as like a doer, like hands in. I like the work. And honestly, I think that's been the hardest thing for me being in the Senate is that like I get to work on policy, which I really like. Yep. But, as a school principal, I had my hands in everything. I was controlling the budget. I was doing the hiring. I was doing the strategy planning. I was doing all of those things every single day to serve 500 people. Yep. And so it's hard to go from that, which is like a 24/7 job, to this that is slow. Oh my gosh, I have a bias towards action. Right? This is so slow. Yeah. Important, but just doesn't move at the speed that I think my leadership style does. Okay. So what's my goal in politics? I would say to do something that is more hands-on in the city.
Do something that is more hands-on in the city. To
be continued.
Okay. That definitely sounds like an open-ended answer. We're going to leave it at that. What do you do when you are just mom or Andrea, the wife, the sister, and you're not Senator Hunley? What's fun to you? What is fun to me? Well, I'm deeply introverted, so I need to be at home and recharge. I just need to sit in front of a fireplace with my book and shut the world out. So once I've done that, then I'm a little re-energized to do some fun. And so we like to hike as a family. Okay. We love to camp. We belong to the climbing gym here in town, so we love to go rock climbing. Yep. And so just getting out, being active, I think is something that I really
really enjoy doing.
Yep. So what do you want? Like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to say about Andrea Hunley when you're long gone?
Mm-hmm. That I worked hard for kids.
Okay.
I think that's it. I mean, I really think that so much of what we do is because adults are asking us to do it, whether it's lobbyists, whether it's constituents that are coming in and calling in. And I always think like, but who is the voice for children?
Yeah.
But who is the voice for the next generation?
Yep.
And so that's something that I definitely see as one of my roles. And so I really hope that people see that I've been working hard for kids.
Good. And this upcoming session, legislative session coming up, what are some key components that you are working for right now?
Yeah, so one of them, I'm really, really hoping that I can get bipartisan across the aisle support for this, but it's firearm safety.
Yep.
So firearms are the number one killer of children here in Indiana. And when you think about that, you think that like if a busload of kids were dying every month, we would do something to make sure that the brakes on that bus were working right, to make sure we had safety belts, to make sure, we would legislate until we couldn't anymore to make sure that all the safety components are there. And yet, when we have hundreds of kids that are under the age of 12 that are dying because they've picked up a firearm in their home that wasn't properly stored, that was still loaded, and they unintentionally shoot themselves. I mean, we just had one this past week, a 6-year-old. We should be doing whatever it takes. And so my firearm legislation does two things. One is as a firearm storage component to it. And then the second is when you go to take your kid to a well child checkup at the pediatrician's office, the pediatrician asks, do you wear your helmet when you ride your bike? Do you wear your seatbelt? We want them to also ask, are the firearms in the home securely stored? Simple question.
A doctor?
A doctor.
Okay.
The doctor, the nurse, whomever's asking the questions. We just want that simple question asked.
Because if the kids know that is them being educated on gun safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is true.
And then if the parents are in there, then they can also give them, they can say, would you like some information on secure storage?
Yep.
Would you like some information about, and so that they can give that information to families.
Please tell me that there's no one fighting against that thing.
Well,
like that,
I mean,
everybody can agree that that's okay, right?
You would think so. And the way, but it's all about how it's written. So we're working really hard to make sure that it's written in a way that like families know, they're not obligated to answer, that the doctors have the choice in how they frame the question. They're not writing this down or tracking the information anywhere.
Yep.
That's not a requirement. It's just that we've got to all be having this conversation about how we keep kids safe.
Yep.
And I cannot tell you how many of my students, I was a kindergarten through 8th grade principal, how many of them knew where the guns in their home were, knew where to get them. Oh yeah, it's underneath my dad's bed in a shoebox. We had kids who would bring, we had one little boy, he brought bullets to school.
Wow.
They're live bullets. He just had them in his hand because he found them sitting on the dresser and they're cool, right? Like if you're 6 years old, that's cool.
That's wild.
Okay, well, he brought them out to recess. You drop one of those on the concrete, it could explode, right? And so things like that, we're like, we have to make sure that our kids understand, just what it means to be safe.
Just talking to them, the verbiage, and and being very open with them about it. Having guns is not the problem. It's the education about them, I think.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand how people can fight the term common sense gun laws.
I know.
Like, we want common sense gun laws, and they be like, no.
Yes, I know. And so this is why I'm working very hard to get, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to help with this, and even carry it. But I think this is an example of like a piece of legislation too, that where like if somebody said, you know what, if a Democrat wasn't carrying this, we could get it through. I would say, great, take my name off. Let's keep it moving.
That's wild.
And that happens a lot.
That's wild.
And so that's why I said, my little fingerprints are all over different things, because there are things that where I'm like, just to get this done, I don't care. I don't need the credit. I just need it taken care of.
Right. Like you care about the legislation, not the credit.
Right.
But I think a lot of people care about the credit.
It's true. And they should keep it moving then.
Speaking about people wanting the credit and all the politics involved, you being in the Senate since 22, you're no longer like a rookie, right? Like you feel like a veteran?
I mean, I do feel like a veteran, but also I'm still learning something new every day.
Yeah. I mean, you're still relatively new to it, though.
I don't even know how to get to the cafeteria without being escorted still, okay? There are all these underground tunnels and things, and I'm like, can someone just walk me to the cafeteria? So some days I still feel new.
Well, what I want to know is who has been kind of like your road dog in the Senate, like the people that you gravitate towards. You guys can joke, you guys can look at each other and have that moment. Who on either side too, like who are the people that you look at and say it's been easier because of them?
Well, I'll tell you one, definitely for sure, was Senator Bro. So Senator Jean Brose, she was the only other Black woman in the Senate when I joined. Her mom had the seat before her, and she was one of the veterans. And when I ran for office, she supported me from day one. Just incredible. And when I was campaigning, she would call me and she would call to check in on me, see how I was doing. And then my very first day in session, I'm getting ready to walk in with her, and she calls me when I was in the car on my way there, and she said, "Hunley, when you get here today, you can't sit next to me." I said, "What?" And she said, "You have to be your own person. You can't follow in my footsteps. You can't be in my shadow. You cannot sit next to me." And I was thinking, I don't even know anybody else. But she was just, my dear friend and mentor.
Yep.
And she passed away after two of my years in session. And she had a kidney failure, and it was so devastating. And there are still days where I will be sitting there in Senate and I will look back to where her chair is. And I just, it just chokes me up. Just again, because she's such a mentor. And she'd been my senator too for almost the whole time I've been in Indianapolis. So I've always looked up to her. But now that she is not there, it's definitely Senator Pohl, Rodney Pohl. He's the first Latino in the state Senate. And
where's he from?
He's from Northwest Indiana, from the region.
Yep.
Yeah, so he represents the region. And he is still the youngest member in the Senate, which he will not let me forget because I'm 3 weeks older than him.
Oh, dang.
Yes. But his kids are the same age as mine. And so we have a good time together as a family.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. That's cool. And now, if you could say a few words about what your vision is for the state of Indiana and what you would like to see happen politically in the next few years, what would you say?
Well, I'm definitely biased, so let's start there.
Let's go.
But I would say that, your state legislature has the ability to fix a lot of things that are wrong in Indiana. We have the ability to lower healthcare costs. We have the ability to lower utility bills. We have the ability to fix the childcare issue and have universal preschool for everybody for free. We can do all of those things. We just aren't doing them. And so, like, my vision, and really my whole caucus's vision, is that we address those issues that are so important to Hoosiers.
Yep.
And this is the problem with the supermajority. We have had a supermajority in power for 20 years, and yet none of those things have been fixed, but they could be. Right? So you need folks in the minority pushing. But if our voices are so, disproportionately silenced, then we're not getting good policy across the line.
Yep.
And so this is where, in order to fix those things, in order to fix our road funding formula so we don't have so many potholes here in Indy, right? Like, that's done at the state level.
Wow, yeah.
So, in order to fix that, we have to fix our balance in the legislature, which means people have to vote.
Do people realize that the potholes are worse in certain areas?
Oh, we already know. The same areas that have been disinvested in over and over and over again.
We don't recognize that?
Yeah.
Can we do something about
I know,
that shit?
But people aren't voting. Over 100,000 registered voters here in Marion County did not show up to the polls in the last election cycle.
Yep.
Like, that changes the outcome, not just here in Indy, but across the whole state of what happens.
Yep.
And so that's the thing. And so I think reminding people, yes, you have to register to vote.
Yep.
Make sure you double check it. And also knowing that just because I hear a lot from people, just because you have a rap sheet, just because you have been in prison before, doesn't mean that you can't vote now.
Yep.
And so making sure that people register again once you're out, like all these things are important so that we can all make sure our voices are heard.
What's the biggest problem getting people to understand that their vote actually counts, or their voice?
Well, there was a big push, this big lie that your vote doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right? And
there's a lot of people that say that.
So that's the big lie. There is a reason why that narrative was pushed, and people believe it now, and they're not showing up.
Right.
And which is how we have this 20 years of supermajority rule.
Yep.
Right. And so we have to get back to the fact that our vote does matter. I mean, one of our House races this last election cycle, 64 votes was the difference. 64 votes between having a person who didn't believe that there should be any exceptions to the abortion ban, meaning they thought that, like, even if there was rape or incest, you should still not be allowed to have an abortion.
Right.
That person got elected over a person who absolutely believes that women have autonomy over their bodies. Like, that is a huge difference. 64 votes.
Yeah.
Like, we needed people to show up. And so, I mean, that's like, you have group chats that might be as big as 64 votes.
That's wild.
Right? And so just getting people to show up.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, like, it's the holiday season, right?
Yes.
And I'm glad I got you here because I really just want to know, like, when I have friends, let's say they voted for Donald Trump or they're MAGA people, how do you go about having these conversations with them? Because it seems like people are scared to have political conversations and talk about their perspectives about things when they don't agree. So how do you approach it when you have people that are across the line from you or think differently than you? How do you do it in a nice way?
Well, first, bless their hearts, and we will pray for them. But I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that, especially, I mentioned President Obama before, there are many folks in all communities who feel like he didn't do enough. He had the opportunity, was in the seat, could have fixed immigration, for example, could have made college cheaper, could have done these things right, and didn't.
Yep.
I mean, Obama, he definitely is the president who has had the most, bombs that were dropped by remote. What are they called? Drones.
By drones.
Thank you.
Drones.
By drones.
Yep.
Obama had the most bombs dropped by drones, than any other president. Right. So there are things to be criticized. And so I think that first we have to acknowledge that we have no kings, right? You've heard that saying a lot.
Yep.
That none of our presidents should be placed on a pedestal to say that they are immune to criticism, right? That our country was founded on criticizing the people in positions of power, right? Criticizing the king. And so I think that first you have to start from there and acknowledge that whoever, is your paragon president, acknowledge that there are problems. And then I think we start from this shared vision. So you need to ask your friends, ask your family members, if you had your magic wand, what would you fix right now?
Yeah.
If you could see one thing changed for our country, what would you want it to be? If you could see one thing changed for our city, what would you want it to be? And start from that shared value, because I bet that you will come to agreement on what that is much faster than you will arguing anything else. And so then you really then can talk about, well, what's the path to get there?
Yep.
So if you say, I want there to be, lower healthcare costs or people not to be in such medical debt.
Yeah.
Right? Who would argue that?
I think they do.
Who would argue that?
I think they argue all that.
Oh no! Who would argue that? I mean, you don't want. So I think talking about that, or like, what does it mean to have a minimum wage that is more than $7.25 an hour?
I've heard people say that they don't deserve. And I'm like, bro, you make $200,000 a year.
Yes.
And you're worried about somebody making $15 an hour.
Well, the first shall be last and the last shall be first.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, but I think that asking people, just to really think about, like, what does fixing one thing look like?
Yeah.
What's that one thing? And then starting from there. And then also you have to be curious and authentically curious, meaning like you have to ask a question and mean it as a question. So you can't be like, how in the world could you think that way? That's not a real question. That is not a real question.
Right.
You have to say, like, talk to me more about how you've grown to believe that no one deserves more than $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you think that they could survive. with the family.
Yep.
And then what they should do.
Yep.
You know,
and how
you have to really
to
be
that
curious.
conclusion
Yes.
and what makes you feel that way moving forward about other people. When you have a totally different lived experience than them, just being able to speak on somebody else's experiences is crazy to me. So I need to change how I start these conversations.
Well, actually, you don't. We do. Because what we really should be doing...
Well, let me tell you how I start them. Because I say, do you think he's a fat, orange, ugly bastard? I like, tell the truth. Is he a fat, ugly, orange bastard? And if they say, well, he ain't that, I'm like, bro, you guys are...
See, you need to approach it as if you were a podcast host, and you need to just be curious.
Yes.
You need to, go into podcast mode.
Yes.
This is for everybody out there.
I'm gonna interview everybody.
And interview them.
Okay,
that's it.
Yes. Okay, I'm getting better now. I'm starting to get better. All right. What I want to know is. This is the last question about the Senate and all that, but I want to know, what is the thing that you have learned in your time in the Senate that you wish you knew when you first started? Is it how to get to the kitchen?
I mean, I'm working on that. I'm working on that. I think that it would be that it's okay to ask questions.
Yep.
And, and whether that is like in a committee meeting, I mentioned my utilities committee. I'm also on the tax and fiscal policy committee. Tax policy can get very dense very fast.
Yep.
And so just knowing now, I know, if I don't understand a term that's being said, that I can just raise my hand and ask the question.
Yep.
Where in my first session, I wouldn't have done that. I would have waited till the end, or I would have, leaned over to my neighbor to whisper it. But now I know, I can ask the question out loud. I should ask it out loud because typically if I have the question, so does somebody else.
Oh, that's what's up. Mm-hmm. And my question that I ask everyone, do you know what this question is?
I'm ready.
You've listened to a few, so... I always ask everyone, what do they define success as? And I want to know your definition of success.
This is so hard.
Is it?
Yes. I see success through the eyes of my kids, through the eyes of my girls. And so I think that that I consider myself successful if I am able to go home, have dinner with them, and feel at peace about any decision that I've made for the day. Mm-hmm. I feel at peace about where we're going for the future. If I can just come home and feel at peace, then I feel like I've reached success. Mm-hmm. I mean, ever since I was little, I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to have 2 kids, right? And I think that sometimes we get so caught up, can I afford a plane ticket to this tropical island? No. Can I afford the big house on my block? No. Can I, afford to, go to Whole Foods and buy whatever I want? Absolutely not. But I am so successful because at the end of the day, my family sits around a dinner table together and it's that's beautiful. Yeah. And I need to just pause and recognize I don't need to be chasing anything else.
Yeah. I think we've really changed what success is because we've made so much seem attainable. And I mean, being able to just be healthy and go to work and go grocery shopping is a success in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But everybody's definition is different. You know what I mean?
It is. Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful. But we do this thing called This or That on our show.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you something.
Uh-oh. All right.
And so what we do is we donate money to a charity, and if you answer the question, but if you don't answer the question, that's cool too. We just don't donate.
Pressure.
We don't donate. Yeah. And This or That, Andrea Hunley version. Peyton Manning or Reggie Miller?
How dare you put me on blast like that off the top? Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to go Reggie Miller because my dog is named after Reggie Miller. My little puppy is Reggie.
Okay, so I mean, you don't have a dog named Peyton, do you?
No.
How dare you? All right, would you rather get a phone call, a text, or FaceTime in communication?
None of the above? Okay, text message. I have 934 unread texts.
Ooh, how was that? You don't even know what's going on.
Nope.
So we got Butter Arts Fair or Rev Indy?
Ooh. I'm team butter.
Okay.
I love butter.
Okay. Pancakes or French toast?
Pancakes all the way.
Okay. Beyonce or Rihanna?
Oh my goodness. I'm in the beehive. Beyonce.
Okay. Would you rather have no feet or no hands?
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, I'm going to go no feet.
Okay.
Because now I know about the awesome prosthetics that are available. So there we go.
Boom. Downtown Meridian Street or Fountain Square or Broad Ripple?
Oh, man. Fountain Square.
Oh, I'm going.
That's my vibe.
That's my vibe, too. 2 years of Donald Trump presidency or 4 years of COVID pandemic?
4 years of lockdown any day. Keep me home and safe because the Lord knows what's happening right now.
And would you rather build leaders or build systems?
Oh. I'm a systems thinker, but I always want to grow the bench. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, who thought of these? I'm going to say leaders.
Okay.
Because then they're going to work on the systems.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. That's it.
Listen, that was tough.
Hey, that wasn't too
good.
bad. You did good. You answered all of them. You guys got any for her? Like, no? Peter usually got good ones. Peter usually has the good ones. Well, I really, really, really appreciate you coming, especially during this time. It's very busy for you, I know, but seeing you around town, it's an honor to have you here, and, you know, we support you. And if you ever need anything from us, we got you. And I'm
going to remember that. I'll be calling.
For sure. But thank you for your service, too.
Thank you.
That's very honorable and commendable. But I would like everybody to go to followdmoney.com, tell me where I messed up, and go to, followdmoney.com, get merch, ask me questions, and we'll see you guys next year. This is the end of this year. We did a whole year straight, so we'll see y'all next year. Boom! Deep money.